Welcome to another episode of Relics Radio. This is a family-friendly show, so the entire family can join us as we talk metal detecting, relic, and treasure hunting. You can also call in to the show at 270-495-0315 or join in the chat and post any comments or questions you might have. Relics Radio is also now syndicated on goodtalkradio.com and has a show each Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Arizona time. You're listening to Relics Radio of Southern Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. And it is showtime Thursday night here on Spreaker.com. You're listening to the world-famous Relics Radio coming to you out of the foothills of Kentucky and Middle Tennessee right along the beautiful Cumberland River. I am your host, Digging with Seven.
And I'm your co-host, Tennessee Jeff.
We
missed the dodged the bullet today, didn't we, with the storms?
Yes, we did, sure did. And even right before we came on the air here, I was looking, and down in Alabama, there are some tornado warnings and everything down that way. So you guys be careful, be safe, and hope that everything works out for you down there. Somebody's already trying to call in right now. We won't open up the phone lines until 55 after, until we get out of our syndicated part of the show. But yeah, we dodged a bullet today. There's no doubt about it with these storms that came in. And Jeff Lupert out in Colorado, they had a monster storm in Colorado.
Really, I didn't hear about that. I was just paying attention here. So did the big snowstorm? Big snowstorm, 90-something mile-an-hour winds, all kinds of people trapped out on the road. So many hundreds of flights canceled and everything. And it was something else. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, I'm sure glad I wasn't in Colorado today. I mean, that sounds terrible. And then our prayers go out to the people that are affected by all the storms.
And we got half redneck Mark Hoover. He's out in Virginia, but he's joined us in the chat and also on our regular chat that we have on Facebook Messenger, where we toss messages and things back. So want to welcome him and encourage everybody to go over to Adventures in History. That's his Facebook group page. Great channel there to go and check out. Also check out the Relics Radio channel. And also, guys, sometime this month, either this show, next show, or the next show, we're going to give away what, Jeff?
We're going to give away a Equinox 600 from Murray Branch Outdoors.
Yeah, I guess I should have said Murray Branch Outdoors is going to give it away because we didn't pay anything for it. But that is quite a gift. And what you have to do is go to the Relics Radio Facebook group page, put your name in there, and we will give you a number, and then we're going to draw a number, and we're going to give that detector away live. I'm not going to tell you when we're going to turn the contest off, but because then you'd know exactly when we're going to give it away, I guess. We may give it away tonight. You don't know. We may give it away next week. But you have got to be listening, and you're either going to have to call in or you're going to have to put something in the chat. I'm here, hello, waving at me, and then somebody is going to win. We're up to somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 entries in that. So that's great.
That is great.
And, February was our Women of Metal Detecting, but kind of in between all of that, Jeff, we've been putting on a little series of treasure hunters, haven't we?
We sure have. And we've had a lot of good hunters. And tonight's guest, man, he is known as the underwater Indiana Jones, Carl Fismer. So how's it going, Carl?
That just the way we rehearsed it. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I didn't. I know that's on the internet. I didn't make that up. It sounds kind of like I'm in love with myself, but believe me, I'm not. But anyhow, things are going good. I've been doing this for about I'm going to say 48 years. And right now, I am busier than I have ever been in all that previous time. We've got 3 big projects underway, and as we get into the show, I'll talk more about them. But man, my age ought to be retired, but I guess it's just not going to happen.
That's right. I mean, if you're having fun, why retire? So, tell us a little bit about how you got started in the treasure hunting. I know we just started before the music come on. We were discussing how you got into it and about diving versus metal detecting.
Yeah, well, I do both, but right now I mostly just metal detect in the water. But I go out to the beach quite a bit. The land stuff I was doing used to be here in Florida, of course, Southwest Florida. And we did find many of the old pirate encampments. There were 2 big heydays of pirates, but the early 1800s, there were thousands of them. And I know you don't hear much about that, but in the year 1820, Florida was purchased from Spain by the United States. And the first thing the government did was form what's called the West Indies Squadron. And that was a whole fleet of ships, warships, and their job was to wipe out the pirates, the whole Caribbean and Florida, of course. And I think in like 10 years' time, they got credit for taking out something like 35,000. So the early 1800s was the West Indies Squadron got cheated out of their place in history, because I'll bet you guys never heard of them. They could make a Steven Spielberg spectacular movie about those guys. Anyway, I was all over the pirate areas in Southwest Florida. All of the gumbo limbo trees, the old ones, have real carvings on them. And I found on the Isle of Carapaloo, which is a 106-acre island. By the way, my dive partner, Bradley Williamson, he's down there filming right now for the Expedition Unknown show. They're in search of Jose Gaspar, if he really existed. And I don't know if he did or not. But I know that there was a lot of pirates through that area. I found the small gauge railroad tracks where they used to careen the ships to clean the bottoms of them. And believe you me, to get them barnacles off those boats was a bad job, but the ships would go a lot faster with a clean bottom. Just a little something nobody thinks about. So anyhow, that's basically how I got into the metal detecting, was moving into Florida. And then I was on the fire department and I started diving. And one day we accidentally dove on a shipwreck. We accidentally anchored over one. I was just so, I don't know what the word is, taken by it. I'd say we didn't get much work done that day. We were supposed to be practicing our rescue and recovery drills, but there were 6 of us. But we dove on this wreck. It was a modern wreck, like World War II vintage, a mini freighter broken in half. But we all went in the fish are swimming in and out of it, and there's a bunch of copper tubing in there. And we thought, well, number one, copper's bad for the environment. Number two, copper gets pretty good money at the scrapyard. So we bent two scuba tanks. We bent as much copper as we could get, worked hard for about 4 hours. next day I took it to the scrap yard, and I think we got $11.14 or something. But that was when I realized I was going to be a wreck diver.
Oh, me, I tell you what, that was a lot of work for not a lot of money, was it?
It was, but fortunately, I even got a lot better at that too.
you didn't do like Fred Sanford did you? Where the guy invited him out, told him that they would go to this certain restaurant that he was paying for their meal that night, and him and Lamont went to the restaurant. And while they were gone, well, the thief come in and took all the copper pipe tubing and everything out of their house. And you didn't do people that way, did you?
It's a big one, Elizabeth. I'm on the way. Yeah, there you go.
That was a great show, and these young people that are listening to us, they don't even know what we're talking about when we talk about Fred Sanford. What was the name of that show? I can't even remember now.
Sanford and Son.
Yeah, there you go. Sanford.
Speaking of young people, I'd like to say a special hello to Miss Emily out there. She's listening, right?
Right, she is listening.
Yeah, that's good. I just want her to know that at her age, what a great time she can have ahead of her to start learning how to use that metal detector.
There you go. She's a legend already, and she's just really young. And she's already a legend. But I seen her dad in. And so I know Miss Emily is listening, and she will certainly appreciate you doing that shout out to her. How many different countries, Fizz, have you dove treasure boats and what have you, treasure ships and things? How many countries?
All of Central and South America, Dominican Republic, Sri Lanka, Bali, Canada, and I'm never going north again. That water's cold. All up and down the coastline here, and in the United States, California, Texas, Mexico. I don't mean Mexico's in the United States, but if you follow the water line around, you're going to get into every one of them.
Yeah.
I'd guess maybe 20.
And no way in the world that you can probably remember how many individual dives that you've done, can you? Could you put a number on it?
Yeah. Well, I get asked that question a lot, and the really gung-ho divers keep a logbook. And I'm sorry I never did it because I had no idea that later in life it'd be fairly important. But if I had to estimate, I would guess somewhere around 4,000.
Goodness gracious. Can you imagine that, Jeff?
I could not. I couldn't imagine diving that many times. Carl, what's the deepest ship that you've ever worked on?
Yeah, well, the deepest I ever had to do any work was in 140 feet. But the good news is the big percentage of the wrecks, especially the Spanish galleons, which are, the best money ships, are in shallow water. I've picked up thousands and thousands of Spanish coins in 12 to 15 feet of water. And you remember the big gold hit there in Vero Beach 3 years ago, the Queen's Jewels? That they blew into a hole, 396 gold coins in 7 feet of water. That was about a $5 million hit because some of those coins are extremely rare.
My goodness.
Shallow water. Yeah, and those beaches, it's still legal to metal detect the beaches there. Not a day goes by somebody doesn't ask me, where's the best place I can go, on land to find a Spanish coin? And I say the best place is between Fort Pierce, Florida, and Sebastian, Florida. It's maybe about 35 miles, but everywhere in that 35, I've picked up silver and gold. I worked there all in all 19 years, and but that started in 1980. So my 19 years were broken up because I was working in a lot of other places. But I've done well on that 1715 fleet. The good news there again is they hadn't sent a treasure fleet in 5 years. England and Spain were at war, and England had them blockaded. But in 1715, after 5 years and no money, the king said, "Get those ships over here." So they took off, and they outmaneuvered the British. But unfortunately, one of the worst hurricanes in history sank the entire fleet except for one ship between Fort Pierce and Sebastian. You remember Hurricane Irma came through a year or so ago?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was at a coin show in Vero, and I talk at every metal detector club in the state of Florida. I do them once a year, and it's a lot of fun. But some of the guys from the Vero club came into the coin show, and they threw a handful of coins on the table. A couple of them were them nice, big, chunky 8 reals. My guess is they probably worth $400 a piece, just those 2 coins. And I'm talking wholesale price. I don't exaggerate values. Some treasure hunters, as you may know, might add a little bit extra onto what they think the value of stuff is, but I'm not one of them. But anyway, I picked them coins up. I said, "Good going, guys. Wow." I said, "How deep were they?" And he said, "Well, I got there to the beach, and I just started to turn my machine on, and I looked down, and there they were laying." He didn't even turn he didn't even turn his machine on.
So you don't have to have any permits or anything to search that part of the beach? It's pretty much...
No, you don't. The beach is legal. You're just not allowed to be in the water at all. So go at low tide, and your chances are probably a little bit better.
Hey, okay, guys, I'm going to have to jump in here because we've got to run a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, Seven, we's looking good in our new Relics Radio T-shirts.
Yeah, Ken and Mark Guthrie of DetectiveTees.com done brung them to us.
Yep. And they makes other shirts, too.
Yeah, boy. DetectiveTees.com can handle tees for your club, hunt, or any other promotion folks may have.
They even got the Wide Pride shirts.
Yeah, them boys does the manatee crawl.
Yeah, scooting on their bellies.
That's what I said. The manatee crawl.
Looks like slugs eating jelly.
So whether you hunt horizontal or vertical, tell the folks where they need to go, TJ.
www.detectivetees.com.
Still the best commercial on podcast right there. That is Plugmaster Ford, Jeff Ford, the voice or the man with so many voices. Go out and check out detectivetees.com. Whether you want a metal detecting shirt or for sports for your kids or whatever, go check them out. Didn't mean to cut you off there, Jeff, but we got to pay bills every now and then.
That's right. I was just enjoying the show and forgot all about the time. It's going quick.
You were right. That snuck up on us.
It really did. All right, you say you can't detect in the water. Okay, is that like waist deep or you can't?
No, that's your feet getting wet.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's probably why it's best to go during low tide. You have more area to look. But I'm telling you, I found coins on the beach on bad weather days when we didn't get out to dive. I go out on the beach and always pick up a coin or two. There have been literally thousands recovered on the beach, and that includes some of the rare gold coins. It is the best place if you want to find Spanish treasure in the whole world.
Well, it is called the Treasure Coast, and that's why. I saw a map on one of your sites. I can't remember now, doing research on you and trying to find out more about all of the things that you've been involved in through the years. but I saw a map that showed all of the Spanish shipwrecks and other shipwrecks off the east coast of Florida there. It is absolutely amazing how many ships sank out there, isn't it?
It is amazing. I mean, literally thousands of them. But just to give you an example, just in the Florida Keys, between 1850 and 1860, they logged something like 1,000 shipwrecks, and that was before the Civil War, when there was any kind of war or fighting between the ships. And here's a little fact for you guys that a lot of people don't know this. There's over 100 Spanish galleons missing just in the Gulf of Mexico. Everybody thinks the East Coast is treasure laden, and it is, but nobody thinks about the ships over 300 years coming from Veracruz and following the coastline. Their first order was sail east until you see Tampa Bay, and then sail south to Cuba, to Havana. And in those 300 years, over 100 galleons were lost and just written off as never heard from again. No survivors. I imagine the Indians invited them for lunch or something. If you were lucky enough, if you were lucky enough to make it to the beach. And so, and in fact, we've just recently made a big discovery in the Gulf of Mexico, and that's what's going to keep me here for I don't know how long. It just maybe a few months, maybe a couple of years. But we just last Saturday started picking up the first pieces off of it.
Yeah, and we're going to get into detail on that in the fourth segment of this show. Out of everything that you've done, 48 years of diving, working over 300 wrecks in all the countries that you've worked, had a hand in probably bringing to surface more than $10 million in treasure, worked with Mel Fisher. You were on Pawn Stars as an authority to ID something there, the TV series Treasure Diver and everything. What is your most memorable experience in all of this?
Well, I have a few, but I would say for the best place I've ever been, and I'd have to say that's out on Silver Shoals Reef. The closest point of land is Puerto Plata, Dominican Republic, and it's 75 miles. We were out there for 2 months, and here's one good thing of it. 2 months I'm out there. I don't see land. I don't see any city lights. At night, it's pitch dark. I laid out on the back deck on my mattress and just stare up at the stars all night. And you'd be amazed at how much activity is really going on up there. There's all kinds of stuff moving around, but and the whales were jumping and singing right where we were working. But the big thing, 2 months, and I never heard a phone ring. Think about that.
I couldn't imagine that. Could you, Sam?
No, because our phone rings all the time. It sure does.
I miss it, and there's a chance there's going to be another expedition out there. I've been asked to join that too, which I probably will, because that Silver Shoal, it's about a 40 square mile reef, and the Spanish had named it the Abrojos, meaning keep your eyes open, because at low tide, a lot of those reef heads are awash, and there's hundreds of wrecks right out there, right in the middle of nowhere.
Man.
So, yeah.
And you were talking about all the shipwrecks in the Gulf of Mexico. And, of course, Seven and I, we deep sea fish. Can you imagine just knowing that we've been over one of the sunken Spanish ships while we've been out there fishing?
Yeah, I know.
You probably were.
Yeah.
The Atocha, the 999 silver bars from the mother lode on the Atocha, when they finally did find it, it had over 1,000 fish hooks stuck in it.
Oh,
that's my
luck.
luck.
I can believe that.
Yeah, that's my luck. I'm hung up on something other than it just happens to be a $10 million or $5 million shipwreck, and I can't get down there to it. What is the most memorable find that you've had?
Well, gold is nice and gold coins are great, but I guess the things I remember most of the religious artifacts, for example, I found what's known as a reliquary, which is an oval shaped about as big as a large egg, and it was a container used to hold a relic that had been handed down from a saint or a martyr from 2,000 years ago. There were two rosaries inside, the hand-carved rosewood inlaid with 22-karat gold, and each cross had two little slivers of wood inlaid right where the crossbars cross. And those little slivers of wood came from the cross of a crucified saint or martyr during Roman times. And, every time I look at it, I still have that. That's one that I could not part with that. And now I don't know, like when St. Peter was crucified, he said, "Crucify me upside down. I don't deserve to die like Christ." And they did. But after St. Peter was dead, the faithful cut up his cross and distribute. And I'm not saying what I got is from St. Peter. I don't know, because there's no way to trace the history on. But I know somebody back in those days, I've got a memento of them. I guess that's my most favorite thing. I talk about that more than anything else.
So what is the biggest ship you've worked on, say treasure-wise?
The biggest salvage vessel I worked on wasn't big, is 105 feet, but it was plenty big enough to do what we needed to do. That was down in Panama, but most of the time, like right here in Florida, I've run 3 40-foot boats, and of course we have the blowers on the back end of them. And like I said earlier, most of the treasure is in shallow water. So we just put that big blower down on the back, and it covers the propeller, and we put 3 or 4 anchors out to hold the boat steady. And then when we fire up the engine, it gently blows away the sand and the sediment right off of the valuable stuff. And of course, while it's doing that, I'm down there underneath of it, picking them up as fast as I can, throwing them down my wetsuit jacket. One time I came back to the boat and I pulled the zipper down on my jacket, and there came out 175 8s and 4s. Yeah, all over the deck.
We'll get back to that after this commercial break.
If your passion is metal detecting, then you know how much your success is based on the equipment you use. Let my buddy Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, help you with that. Tim is an authorized dealer of Mine Lab, Garrett, XP Deus, and macro detectors and supplies, and also carries many aftermarket items. Murray Branch Outdoors is not only competitive in their prices, but the service after the sale is second to none. Tim not only sells detectors, he uses them, and so he can answer any question that you might have. Murray Branch Outdoors also deals in used detectors, and he'll take your old detector in on trade when you decide to upgrade. So give Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors a call at 615-948-4611 or visit his website at www.murraybranchoutdoors.com, and be sure and tell him Relics Radio sent you. And by the way, Tim Henderson and Murray Branch Outdoors, they are the ones responsible for giving away a Mine Lab Equinox 600 sometime this month, right on this show right here. Will it be tonight? Don't know. Stay tuned and we'll see. Go ahead, Jeff. Get back with the. I can't imagine undoing my zipper and all kind. My belly falls out. There's so 4s and 8s. You talk about everybody wants a 6-pack, and he's got 4s and 8s falling out. No 6s.
That's right. And Carl, everybody looks at gold and silver as the treasure. Okay, what about your weapons? Your pottery, bottles? What about? How many do you find on an old shipwreck?
Usually there's some on, but usually like flintlock pistols and muskets and swords. I have recovered a lot of them, but only on those wrecks where I was the first one on them, because those are the first things to disappear. And, to stabilize them, you really don't need a whole lab set up right away, which is very expensive. But if you get everything into fresh water, that will stop the oxidation right there. You'll just put everything in limbo until you can afford some better preservation. In the TV show Treasure Divers, first or second episode, we went into my house in the Keys and into the bathroom, and I took the toilet tank, the top off, and there was some pewter plates in there. There were some keys. There were some knives and a couple of cannonballs. And I put the small artifacts in my toilet. Many reasons. One is it changes the fresh water on them every time. And 2 is you save water in the space they're taking up. And fresh water in the Keys is very expensive.
I really never thought about that, fresh water in the Keys. And then, of course, you'd also, if you had something valuable, that's where you would hide it. So, who would check the toilet bowl?
Yeah, guys, don't flush the toilet. Please don't flush the toilet yet. I've got a few $100s worth of relics and everything in there. I tell you what.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I was going to kid you and say I only flushed a dozen gold coins, but nothing really comes out of there but the water. I've had a couple of people tell me, I'll buy your house, but you have to leave that stuff in the toilet tank.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't have a house for sale, do you?
Yeah, well, actually, I am trying to sell it, yeah. And you're looking for a really nice house in the Florida Keys, let me know.
All right, just leave a couple of gold coins in the toilet tank. We'll be fine.
For the right price, I can do that.
Yeah, you're going to pay for it, Jeff. Hey, Fizz, over the course of all of these adventures that you've been in, you've done history a service by doing some books. You've got a couple of books out now, and you've got another book that's going to be released soon. Why don't you talk about Uncharted Water and Man Overboard for a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Sam Milner, a good friend of mine who has written like 15 other books, he's actually the genius, if you want to call it that, behind these books. He said that, he said, man, you've done enough. You need to write a book. And I've tried to write a book several times. I've written a whole bunch of magazine articles, Lost Treasure and all those, in Western and Eastern. But the magazine article, 5 pages or something, and you can knock it. It took me at least a week to write those. And but a book is a whole new career. Anyway, basically, I told everything I could think about talking into a tape recorder. And then Sam typed it up. He put it all in chronological order, and he typed it exactly like I was saying it. And it came out pretty funny. With Uncharted Waters was everything Uncharted Waters was everything I could think of. And there's a treasure hunter older than me, believe it or not. His name is George Seitz, and he lives over on the Treasure Coast. He called me up and he said, Fizz, I know you're busy, but I just got to tell you, I was reading your book, and I'm reading the chapter about the witch and the penguin. And I got to tell you, I just like you're right here telling me that story. I said, George, you're 96. I am standing there telling you that story. He busted out laughing, and he busted out laughing and hung up. But then after that book was published, and Sam and I got together several times, we're good friends, and he hears me telling other stories, and he said, why didn't you say that the first time? I said, I didn't think of that one. So he gives me the tape recorder again, and we got in. He said, there's enough here for a second book. So we came out with Man Overboard, and we've also enclosed a DVD stuck in the back of Man Overboard. If you get tired reading, you can just pop that in and hear me telling those stories.
What is the best, what's your favorite story out of all of those stories?
Well, there's one in particular called The Mystery Temple. And I'll tell you where it is. We kept it a secret, but it's in Costa Rica. And it's in, and by the way, satellite imagery has shown that there's all kinds of underground tunnels and caves all through Central and into South America. And a lot of the archaeologists are getting in there, and they find old roads that are 7,000 and 8,000 years old. I accidentally came across this family in Costa Rica through a strange series of events, but I have it all written down. And here's my opinion. You know, you can argue if you want. And Jack Haskins backed me, because when I got back, the first guy I went to was Jack Haskins, and Jack said, you know, for years there's been stories about the Romans here, the Phoenicians came over, the Chinese were here, the Vikings were here, all before Columbus ever got here. And there's Phoenician writing on the walls in those caves. And the older lady that was in charge of this family excavating it was talking about all the treasure down inside of it. There used to be, a couple of thousand years ago, 3 priests were running that temple. And this is going to sound strange, but I'll just tell you anyway. They had this water coming through the limestone rock. Supposedly, it was the fountain of youth, and they used to sell this to all the other countries would sail over here and buy that water from these 3 priests. And she said there's, if you had the train box car, it'd be more than full of all kinds of gold, silver, and precious stones and things. Well, they had been digging for 25 years, a hole in the ground. And I know, how did you start digging here? And but that story's in there, and it's phenomenal. But it's in the first book. But then on the second book, I found a lot more of my notes and pictures. And Sam was looking at them, and he said, Fizz, why didn't you give me these the first time we wrote that story? And I said, well, I'm sorry I couldn't find them. I've only got 10,000 boxes of stuff in my house. And so, yes, I do. But I cleaned one of them out today. And so anyway, he rewrote the story only longer and in more detail into Man Overboard. So that one story is in both books, but the second book elaborated greatly on it. Just the fact that Columbus did good, but, you know, there's even one account out where before Columbus went to see King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, he actually was educated by some Vikings that actually drew him a map on how to find us over here. I don't know if that's true or not, but there is a story that says that that's what Columbus did. He knew he was really going to find a big new land. But that story's in both books. In the second book, it's more elaborated. but there's everything else, the 1715 fleet, 1733, 1622, things I did down in Peru and Ecuador and all through Central America, the Bahamas, Dominican Republic, out on silver. I think it's great. Of course I would, because I did it, but I haven't heard one complaint or one bad report on any of those books. I've probably sold, just on Facebook, I think I sold about 800 of them.
Wow, that's great. And then, of course, I'm sure you cleaned out some more boxes, and you've got a new book coming out, In Search of Jack Haskins. And, of course, that's what you're calling it right now. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, in my opinion, Jack was the best treasure hunter, but he was also responsible for more Spanish treasure recovery than anybody, and that was because he could go to the Archive of the Indies in Seville, Spain, and there's over 300 years of old documents in there. And in fact, the cover shot is Jack sitting there in front of a big stack of them, but they call them legajos. And he learned, self-taught, how to translate archaic Spanish. Of course, when I met him, he didn't have a TV set. All he did was translate old documents when he's home, and he actually enjoyed it. And so all of your big name wrecks, all of them that you've heard, Jack had a hand in finding that, because they all go to Jack for research on where those ships sank. And the Spanish were meticulous records keepers. The scribes, as he called them, had to write 3 reports, 3 of them just the same in longhand, and it would be everything about that ship, the captain, the crew, the passengers, the cargo, the king's treasure, everything about those ships written in longhand, and only one sheet of them documents would travel on the ship, and then a year later, the second set of documents would travel on a different ship, and the third set would stay right there in the home port. That's why there's such good research on where the Spanish galleon sank, because as soon as they lost one, the Spanish would attempt salvage on them. And what they do is they read the salvage records and know where the Spanish were looking. In fact, that's how they found the Atocha. The Atocha and the Margarita sank within eyesight of each other, 1622. But everybody thought they were in the upper Keys, but they were actually 100 miles south down towards Key West, because one sentence in over 1,000 sheets of paper, one sentence, Cayo de Marques, the Marques of Keys. The Spanish always made their salvage camps on the closest land to the shipwreck. And today, in everywhere there were Spanish, I have friends in foreign countries, I've given them metal detectors, and they are combing those salvage camps, and they're doing good. And of course, they bring Captain Fizz their stuff. True story.
That's great. And then we'll continue that after this commercial break right now.
If you want to keep up with what's going on in the metal detecting world, then you need to be a subscriber to American Digger magazine. Butch and Anita Hokum are the publishers of the magazine and have won awards for 3 straight years for being the best digger magazine on the market. American Digger magazine is available in both print and digital formats, so no matter where you live in the world, you can enjoy the latest happenings in the hobby. You can get in touch with American Digger magazine by going to americandigger.com or give them a call at 770-362-8671. And be sure and tell them that you heard it on Relics Radio. And for the record, if you don't get enough of me on Thursday nights, come on Monday nights to American Digger Relic Roundup. I am the producer of that show now and also a co-host, and we're doing a series over on Relic Roundup that we're featuring the writers of the magazine and some of the stories and things that are there. Steve Zazulik is going to be our guest this next Monday night. I'll tell you what, Jeff, it's fun for me tonight because I finally got somebody on here that's as old as I am that can go way back and talk about all of these old stories and everything. But you're involved in something called Scuba Wise, WIZE. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, oddly enough, I lived in the Keys for like almost 40 years, and I dove on the fleet of Spanish galleons almost every day that sank in the year 1733. And I just never thought about people would pay me to go diving with me out on those. And so Mark Littleton, my diving partner, and Bradley Williamson, the three of us got together and we started offering Scuba Wise, WIZE. If you're a diver or even a snorkeler, or even you just want to go along for the ride and get an education, we have one-day seminars. And in the morning, we hold class. I call it Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Treasure Diving, because we ask you ahead of time to bring a list of questions, because you can't possibly cover it all. But we have class in the morning, then we take an hour for lunch, and we meet at the dive shop, and we go out and we dive on two different sites of two different wrecks that sank in 1733. And the El Infante is the name of one of the big galleon, the Infant, a big galleon. And I know I've dove a couple of hundred times just on that one wreck, but I never thought. And then people start saying, diving on a Spanish galleon, that's on my bucket list. And we've been doing this for 3 years, and we haven't had one complaint. In fact, we've had some of our customers have been back 3 times and brought family members. Lots of them have come back 2 times. But the second site is really good because it's a 12-foot cannon. And when it was riding on a storm surge in 1733, and it thumped on the bottom, and the cannon went shooting right through the gunnel, which is the sidewall, and ended up landing on top of a coral head in the firing position. It looks like it's just sitting there ready to go off. And I tell everybody, it's the best photo op in the ocean, your picture with this 12-foot cannon. And it's been sitting there waiting for you since George Washington was 1 year old.
Man, could you imagine? Seven, you made that cannon, didn't you?
No, I didn't make it. But I was there whenever it was made. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I test fired it. yeah, they'd like you to test fire it because a lot of them blew up on the first shot.
Well, that one, I'm here, so that one was okay.
Yeah, well.
Carl, on Scuba Wise, are you allowed to bring metal detectors or anything, or is it just a scuba dive trip or a snorkeling trip?
Yeah, unfortunately, in the Keys these days, it's illegal. The government bureaucracy called NOAA has taken, there used to be a small weather reporting thing, and now they're a giant octopus. They are taking over. They took all Monroe County out to the 300-foot depth. It's the biggest sanctuary in the world. It was illegal for them to do it, and we fought it. You form committees. You have to form committees and yell at the politicians, but to no avail. They now own it, and you don't want to get caught in the water with a metal detector. If they, especially me, I'm at the top of their list down there. I don't like them, and they don't like me, and that's the way I like it. But if I got caught in the water with a metal detector, I'd be in the electric chair for 9 months.
That would do it.
Yeah.
It'd give
a long time.
It would give a whole new meaning to Captain Fizz, wouldn't it?
Boy, wouldn't it?
You're
I got a lot of friends out west that metal detect, off Arizona, California, and dredge. And they said that Bureau of Land Management is just as maybe worse than we've got it here in Florida. I said, I can't imagine it any worse.
It's getting that way. It's getting that way everywhere, though. The government, overreaching and getting into things that they probably shouldn't have. And Woody Jones had a question in the chat, and that was, why haven't they recovered that cannon? Is it like a underwater park? And I suspect that that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a sanctuary. It's more than just a park. And the reason they claim out to 300 foot deep is because that you ain't going to dive on the wreck in 300 feet, at least normal scuba. So they fixed it so you can dive on them. That's legal, but you don't have a metal detector and you don't touch anything. You can take pictures, and that's why I advertise it as the best photo op. They don't. If you brought an iron cannon in these days, the expense of preserving an iron gun that's been in salt water for 200-300 years is enormous. So nobody, well, that's not true. They brought one iron cannon in a few months ago up in Sebastian, and I know the guys that did it, and I wish them luck. They got a lot of press coverage out of it, but preserving those, they have to cook in what they call reverse electrolysis, which is sodium hydroxide and zincs and everything. And you got to make a 12-foot, bigger than a 12-foot tank to get it in. Then you fill it up, and then all these chemicals, and it will take you 10 years before that gun would be preserved. Thousands of dollars.
Man.
Yeah.
So I couldn't throw my regular old small tank in my garage back here for horseshoes and stuff like that.
Well, you could put that 12-foot cannon in your toilet tank.
My toilet tank ain't that big as yours, Jeff.
Yeah, mine ain't either.
We can make one.
Yeah, and once again, that's the government's got into that, because you can only have a gallon that will flush at a time now because of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, they allow you that much, do they?
Yeah, down here, and of course we got a lot of water in Kentucky and Tennessee. But, it's, and guys, I know everybody is just biting their lip right now, wanting us to open up the phone lines. If you'll give us 2 more minutes, we're going to open up the phone lines, and you're going to get to call in and talk to Captain Fizz. I know that there are people out here that, and I know Allison Walker is in the chat. Allison dove there on Scuba Wise one time and took some pictures, right?
I guarantee you never met a nicer lady than her. I mean, just extremely nice, polite, fun to be with, because after we do our diving, we'll go to one of the local places and get something to eat and have a beer or something. And she's one of my best friends, and I only met her once.
She's one of our best friends, and we've only had her on the show once, but we fell in love with her, didn't we, Jeff?
We talked about going up there, kidnapping her, bringing her back to southern Kentucky, middle Tennessee, and of course all the guys in Canada, they was like, "No, you can't have her." And so I mean,
if you do that, let me know and I'll help you.
Okay, all right.
Get her all the way down to Florida that way, can't we?
Yep. Yeah. She said, ask Carl about the Canadian rum.
Well, actually, she did bring a couple of bottles. She brought 3, I think, one for everybody. And I got to drink them all, but she doesn't know that. It's great. And to tell you, I'm sitting here right now with one, but not the one she brought because I drank that a long time ago. But I've got a new one sitting here beside me.
Okay. What current projects are you working on? And by the way, guys, before you get into that, let me go ahead and give the call-in number out. I'm going to put it in the chat. But also,
I just thought of the name of the town my daughter lived in. It's Smyrna.
Okay. Yeah, I know where Smyrna is.
Yeah. All right, go on with the show now. I was going crazy trying to think of that.
Yeah, it was going to worry you to death.
Yeah, we were talking before the show, and he said his daughter lived down here close to us somewhere, and he couldn't think. He said, "I'll think of it at 3:00 in the morning." Is it already 3:00 in the morning? But anyway, the phone lines are open. 270-495-0315. Call in. Get to talk to a legend, Captain Fizz. Go ahead, Fizz.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead with your story.
Oh, well, which one were we on?
Well, we were talking about, or I don't know if I even introduced it or not. What current projects are you working on right now?
Oh, yeah. Well, right now we actually have 3 of them going. We have 2 wrecks in the Gulf of Mexico. One sank in 1792, and the research indicates it's a good one. But another interesting thing, which I don't normally do, but I'm going to do here, in 1930, in February 1930, the circus owner named John Ringling, you probably heard of him, the Ringling Brothers Circus.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, he had a 125-foot yacht, and it sank nearby here off of Sarasota, Florida. And we're in the process right now of getting the contract to pick up everything that Mr. Ringling lost. And there'll be a lot of valuable items on board, but we don't get to keep them. We're donating them back to the Ringling Museum in Sarasota. But we found that wreck in 2005, and we never did anything with it because it's very difficult to work with the state. In Tallahassee, their main job is to stop you in any way they can, but it looks like we'll be doing this. One reason, they get to keep everything we pick up anyway because they own the Ringling property, and that's our second wreck in the Gulf. I've also been invited to be a consultant on some projects. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, this is Mark Littleton from Scuba Wise. How you doing?
Hey, that guy was just in my house a couple hours ago. Mark, I straightened out that wiring job you messed up.
Everything's working now, huh?
No, I just made that up. I wanted you to feel bad.
Sorry, I just walked in my door and hopped on here a few minutes ago.
So, I thought I described the Scuba Wise pretty good, but I got to say, Mark Littleton, he's the brains of the outfit. I just thought it'd be fun. I've made all those dives out there, and then people started using the term bucket list, and I thought, well, they'd pay money to go out there, and they are, and it's a lot of fun.
They do.
Yeah.
Bucket list adventure. Hey, Carl, the reason I called in, you should tell them the story about the Taj Mahal treasure with Sir Arthur Clarke. That's a great story. That's the reason I called in.
Oh, well, I'm just sitting here trying to think of things to say. And, of course, the Sir Arthur C. Clarke is he's best known for the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. And a lot of young people never heard of him, but that's okay. Very famous. He was a scientist. He was an inventor. When I was diving with him over in Sri Lanka, NASA phoned him from Cape Canaveral. They were having a problem with the shuttle, and he told them how to fix it. And when he hung up the phone, he said, "There, I just saved the U.S. taxpayers $2 billion." And he wasn't kidding. he's the one that came. I wouldn't be talking to you if it wasn't for Arthur Clarke. He invented satellite communication. In other words, we wouldn't have these cell phones without him coming up with how to bounce our voices off the satellites in outer space. He announced that to the world in 1946, and they said, "You're crazy." And he said, "Yes, but we're going to do it anyway." The orbit the satellites travel in is named the Clarke Belt. And when I was diving with, and he led the expedition to salvage the only sunken treasure from the family that built the Taj Mahal. And I have a lot of it on display at Pat Croce's Pirate Treasure Museum in St. Augustine, Florida. And we do have a few of the pieces for sale, but it's just, here's Arthur Clarke. You know, he won the Nobel Prize for satellite communication, nominated for an Academy Award for 2001. He sold over 500 million books. He sold over 500 million books, and he and I have a lot in common because I've sold over 500 books.
Hey, Carl?
500 million books.
Yeah.
Hey, Carl. It's Mark.
Yeah.
Didn't you take Sir Arthur Clarke on the deepest dive that he ever went on?
Oh, yeah, that's true. He started diving with Cousteau in the late 40s. I mean, he was right in there at the beginning. And the reason he started diving, it was because underwater is the closest thing we have to weightlessness, like in outer space. In fact, that's in my book too, all about Arthur Clarke. But it's just a wonderful man, one of the smartest people ever. I saw a 1-hour film of him on the BBC, Arthur Clarke and Stephen Hawking, and they were discussing black holes in baby universes. I sat there politely for the whole hour, nodding my head, and I didn't understand one word that either one of those guys said.
Carl, I am not going to tie up the phone. It was good talking to you, and I'll be talking to you again real soon.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Hey, appreciate the call, Mark, and y'all keep up the good work at Scuba Wise. Maybe me and Jeff come down there and do that one of these days.
Yeah, please do that. And, you know, you don't even have to dive. Snorkeling is, and the water's crystal clear. You can actually see more from the surface than you can on the bottom.
That's good. That's good.
That would be teasing a little bit. I'd see something, then I'd want to touch it, but knowing I couldn't, it'd be hard to do.
Well,
I'd love to try it anyway.
Yeah, you get us all thrown in jail.
We've got another call in, 6263. Who is it, and have you got a question for Carl?
Yeah, my name is Ryan. I'm from California. I got a question for Carl.
Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
What part of California are you in?
Sacramento.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's pretty nice up there in the northern part. I like it up there.
Yeah. Well, my question is, just listening to you on the radio, you got a great voice, and it sounds like you really paint the picture as if we're actually there. I was curious if you've ever considered doing audiobooks and actually narrating yourself for the books that you have.
Well, oddly enough, Sam Milner's trying to talk me into that, and I guess if I drink enough rum, I'll do anything. But yeah, I think we're going to. And also, what's that other word on books? I forget the name of it, where you buy it for $1 and they send it to you on the computer or something. What do they call that?
E-books is what they call them. E-books.
Is it?
Yeah, just with an E, like envelope. Yeah. And they are just digital books. I've got a couple of books that I've written, and they are both on e-books as well, yeah. It's a little different process, but it's a good way to get your books out there. And by the way, guys, And I don't mean to cut you off, Ryan, and you can stay on if you've got another question that you want to ask him or a follow-up on that. But all of these books, all of these stories and everything, if you look at the description on this show, I've got links to every one of those. His website, his Facebook page, everything that you'll need to know about Captain Fizz is going to be there. So go ahead, Ryan.
Well, that's all I really had. First-time caller. I like the show, and just great. Carl, you've been awesome, man, so thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Ryan, before you get off here, let me give you a Relics Radio T-shirt, compliments of DetectTees.com. If you will go to Facebook, the Relics Radio Facebook group page, and send me a message of your name and your address and your shirt size and everything, we'll get you a shirt out. It's been a couple of 3 weeks since we've given one away, and I'd like to have one out in California.
Well, sounds good. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay. And
thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
And if you don't,
thanks, Carl.
If you don't get it there, Ryan, just email me at relicsradio@outlook.com. That's one word, relics with an S, radio@outlook.com, and we'll make sure that you get that shirt.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for your call.
And we got,
thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
We got another call, 0035. Who have we got, and what's your question for Captain Fizz?
This is Miss Allison, Pink Power Alley treasure hunter. And what do you mean the water's cold in Canada, Captain Fizz?
Well, I was up there in July once, and I stuck my foot in the water, and I said, if I ever do that again, shoot me.
We can throw a wetsuit on you.
Uh-huh.
I just want to say what a pleasure it was to meet you just right after Irma hit, and I met you and Captain Bradley Williamson and Dive Master Mark, and the scuba dive workshop was just wonderful. You just sat there in amazement and listened to Captain Fizz and Brad talk about their experiences, and it was overwhelming. Unfortunately, we didn't get to dive, and we went off to, what was it, Captain Fizz, the International Scuba Diving Museum?
Oh, that was the History of Diving Museum.
Yeah.
And we went down to Treasure Beach too, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. But I'll be back, I promise. But do you have any other? My question is, do you have any other on your bucket list where you want to dive? Is there anything in the U.S. or maybe Russia or Romania?
Well, actually, I've pretty much gone to every place I wanted desperately to go, and that's called the Spanish Main, where, in fact, that's my company name. Is the routes that the Spanish ships were taking. Now, I might want to go to the Philippines. You know, once a year they used to have what they called a giant world fair, and the Spanish were there, the Chinese, everybody. There's lots of wrecks there. I think Jack Haskins told me there's at least 35 Spanish galleons that sank in the Philippines. Once a year, a giant party, and everybody's, I guess they're drinking heavily and having fun and getting clumsy, and the boats run into rocks and sink. But I've been to the Philippines, but that's when I was in the Army in 1960. Actually, I parachuted into the Philippines, but I wasn't a treasure hunter at the time. But I would like to go back.
In Indonesia, is that? Have you ever been there?
Oh, I've been. A couple of times. The laws are horribly strict, and you don't want to do anything at all out of line. In fact, being an American these days is, well, you're Canadian, but I mean, they ain't too happy with the United States people.
Yeah, our president, our prime minister is not too liked right now either.
Yeah. Well, he ain't my favorite person either.
It was a pleasure speaking with you tonight, and look forward to your upcoming adventures.
Hey, Allie,
why don't you come down in May? We're doing it May 18th.
I will. I really hope to. I bought an extra couple of lottery tickets. So.
Hey, Allie.
Well, for whatever it's worth, I'll forfeit any of the money I was getting there, and that was most of it. Actually, no, I was stealing it, but yeah, I promise we give you the big discount.
Can I bring my Excalibur too?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, get out and do a little bit of
hunting. That's okay with me.
Yeah.
I'll hope find you some treasure for you.
Hey, Allison, before you get off the line, though, that picture that we used as a promo for you where you're behind the statue, that was made on a dive with Fizz. Am I correct on that?
No, that was after. We didn't get to dive because the weather for our workshop, that was a few days after. I had other friends visiting, and that was in Key Largo. It was Christ
Camp Park.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Was that what?
I'm not too sure. It was the Rainbow Dive Center that took us out to Christ the Abyss.
Well, it was great.
It's popular.
Yeah, it was a great picture.
Yeah.
I tell you.
It really was.
Yeah.
The picture was great. It's amazing that because of Irma, there was no colors. And apparently the colors are all back now for the reef.
Well, that's just great.
Well, come on down.
Okay, sir. I will. Aye, Captain.
May 18th.
I'll bring some more rum.
Thank you. Good to talk to you. I love you. Bye.
Love you too.
Hey, good call, Allison.
Thank you.
Carl, we've got a question from Sue Roberts. She can't call in right now, and she was wanting to know, is there any one particular shipwreck you'd like to locate and excavate, and if so, which one and why?
Yes. Well, there is one that's excessively rich, sank in the 1500s. And now, names were fairly common. Like every fleet had a San Jose in it, and almost every fleet had a Conception in it, and most every fleet had a San Miguel. There's 3 missing San Miguels from 3 different times, and 2 friends of mine actually located one of them, and we're in the process now of getting permission to work it. It will make big headlines once all the legality. I tell you about where it's at, but we have to take care of the legalities. But when you hear about the San Miguel and how much was on board that, it's going to be phenomenal. And believe me, I don't exaggerate values. A lot of people would say, oh, that coin's worth $5,000, when in reality, you're going to sell it for maybe $1,200 or something. But the San Miguel will be headlines, and everybody in the business right now is saying, we need a new wreck. And we do need a new wreck. So look out for that name.
And, that brings up a question that I've got, and you may or may not be able to answer it, but, like the Atocha and the Santa Maria and those wrecks that are well known, what percentage of the Spanish treasure fleets do you think have been found? What's left and what's been found?
That's a good question. And in fact, that's one of my favorite questions about what's still out there. And Jack Haskins is the one that told me this, so it's coming from a lot better source than me. Of all the treasure combined that the treasure hunters have found, we haven't even got 2%. And that's the reason why all these bureaucrats and politicians are, every time 2 politicians get together It's something that we can't do. They new rules, new laws, new regulations, ordinance, and well, you guys know land metal detecting. You're losing areas every day that are posted off limits, out of bounds, every day. Eventually, you won't be able to go metal detecting anywhere. I'm friends with some editors of the treasure magazines. I was friends with a lot of the heads, the owners and the founders of the big metal detector companies. Oddly enough, most of them are dead now, and the kids are running the business. But I asked them one time, I wrote an article for one of the magazines, and when it came out, a couple of key sentences were missing. And I called the editor, and I said, why did you redline me on that? And she said, I didn't do it. The owner did that. And I said, why? And she said, he doesn't want the IRS crawling up his rear end.
And you know that's sad, but that's the reality of it. I mean, if you find a ship, Mel Fisher, you guys, if you find a ship like that, you worked your butts off to find this ship, then everybody wants their hand in the kitty. So
they want more than that these days. They want it all. You know, Odyssey Marine a few years back, they legally worked, and I'm friends with those guys. I've known them before they were Odyssey Marine, and they got this wreck 35 miles off the coast of Portugal, and they brought in 500,000 coins. They were storing them right down the road from me here in Sarasota, Florida. I don't know if I should say the name of the politician because I better not, but a certain politician, and it's easy to find her name, took all them coins away from Odyssey and gave them to the King of Spain.
It's just not right. And, you know,
no.
We obey the laws. We have proper etiquette and everything. And we're trying to go about things right, and we share what we have. We donate things to our local museums, to landowners, and what have you. We're just trying to find the history, and it's no different with a Spanish shipwreck. People are just trying to preserve that history is all they're trying to do.
Yeah,
that's right. In fact, I'll give you a Jack Haskins quote. It's a private individual that has returned to public domain thousands of coins and artifacts that would otherwise just rot away. It was us, we, you, me. It's us that have returned to public domain all of that stuff. The politicians and bureaucrats haven't done squat.
Well, that's true. They have not. And, you know, a lot of times the government archaeologists, when they find something, it winds up in a drawer or in a closet or a back room. And, you know, the public doesn't even have the ability to go and see it.
And
on that subject, I can tell you a couple of horror stories, but maybe we shouldn't say them on the radio. Go ahead.
But see, that's all that right there is going to do is cause people, if they was to find a shipwreck or I was to find a payroll box out digging around, I'm keeping my mouth shut. I mean, that's because, the first thing they're going to do is come and take it from you. Yeah. And there you are. You've done all that work for just
nothing. Yeah.
And then they'll probably try to find you somehow and then say, well, you found it at a bad location. But it don't matter. Yeah. Don't matter where you find it. You ain't allowed to do that. That belongs to us. And it's not like I almost wouldn't feel too bad, but every dollar, they don't know what the word budget means. Them politicians they flush more money down them Washington toilets. You know, the county right there in Washington, D.C. area, it's the richest in the world. The richest in the world. There's no business. There's no industry. There's no nothing. Why do you think it's the richest in the world? Never mind. It's a
it's the government and it's the lobbyist and everything.
You got that right.
Guys, obviously, we're not going to give the knocks away tonight. We do appreciate everybody hanging in there with us tonight. It's going to be next week or the next week. But before we let you go tonight, Carl, spend a few minutes here talking about what's up right now currently with you. What are you engaged in more than anything else?
Right now, like I mentioned earlier, just this past Saturday, we started diving on this new wreck that we found, and it's in the Gulf of Mexico, and we're recovering some of the artifacts off of it. We know there's a lot of money, but my guess is it's going to take us a while to find it. And also, we're working pretty hard to get the lease from Tallahassee to pick up John Ringling's. And the main reason I want to do that is it's going to be good PR for the whole west coast of Florida. And if once we decide to start doing business here, I'm hoping we'll be known as local good guys that do good things. And we don't get nothing out of that. We're doing all the work, and we're donating everything to the state. And they're still giving us a hard time on it.
Yeah, that's true. And go ahead and tell everybody about, tell them again about the name of your books and your website and treasure-wise. Just tell everybody how they can get in touch with Captain Fizz.
Absolutely. Well, my email is captainfizz@yahoo.com. I'm on Facebook. And, there's a lot of information on Facebook. My books are there, or if you just get on to me, scubawise.com and scubawise on Facebook. You can, the books are for sale, or message me on Facebook, if you'd like to have one. Uncharted Waters is about like 40 some years of things I did, places I've been. Good things, bad things, and a lot of funny stuff in there too. And then Man Overboard was all the stuff I forgot to tell about in Uncharted Waters. So, and the third book will be out by the end of next month. Sam and I were talking today about it, and it's going to be all about Jack Haskins, the best all-around treasure hunter, archivist in the whole world. Also, I'm going to offer, once the book is in circulation, I found 2 boxes full of Jack's canceled checks. I didn't have the heart to throw them away, so I've been giving them to people that's been buying my books, and that way, because Jack's in my books, and that way you'll have Jack Haskins' autograph, and it makes a great bookmarker, a canceled check. I just couldn't throw them away, and I enjoy the idea that I'm giving them away to people.
Man.
So, yeah. So you buy Jack's book or any of my books, or even, you don't even have to buy me a book. Send me a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I'll give you an autograph of Jack Haskins.
That's just great. And Mark Hoover has got one of your books, and he told me today or yesterday when we were talking that you had given him one of those canceled checks. So that's just a bonus, isn't it? And I think we had one more question, didn't we, before we get off, Jeff?
Yeah,
sure.
We had one from Tristan, and we had one from Woody. The first one was Woody Jones. He was asking, have you had any close calls out diving on shipwrecks?
Yeah, I've done a few stupid things, and I regretted it. Moving the anchors in extremely rough water was one of them. And I had a bunch of young guys working for me. I could have told one of them to do it, but that just ain't me, I won't order somebody to do something with any risk that I don't do myself. But if he's also talking about sharks, I see them all the time. Never had a problem with them. Sharks are curious, and they come around and watch us quite often. My rule of thumb is, if he's bigger than me, I get out of the water and wait for him to leave. I had one swim right under my arm once as I'm metal detector on the hole, and I'm fanning the sand, and he came right underneath my right armpit and stuck his head down that hole I made.
Man, I couldn't imagine. I would have got out.
We've been in the field before where a bull walked up behind us and put his head over our shoulder and looked down in the hole, but a shark? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And then we had a question from Christian. He asked if have you ever found any human remains, and if so, what do you do when you find human remains?
Yes. On the wreck of the Conception I worked at, that was where I spent 2 months without hearing a phone. I found an intact backbone, complete with some of the broken ribs and things on it, intact spinal column. I just bagged it up, kept it in fresh water, and I gave it to the museum curator in Santo Domingo when we went in. And oddly enough, he was making more to do over having that, because, that was, who knows who that was on the boat. Might have been somebody important, but he thought that was just great. And here we're putting thousands of coins on the deck and artifacts and things, but he loved that spinal column.
I'd say so. I know, of course, I'm part of the Historical Society here in my little town, and the archaeologists, of course, we were going to plant some flowers out here at a local historical site. And if you dig more than an inch deep, you have to have an archaeologist there. And we were digging this hole, and we found one piece of pottery, and they come up with the cameras and everything, taking pictures of it, so excited. And what did they do? They put it right back in the hole, and we put the fence post right over it.
Yeah, let me tell you about something on shipwrecks for sure. Every shipwreck we have is post-Columbian. If you look in the dictionary, archaeology is defined as the study of lost or ancient civilizations. The only reason you keep hearing archaeology, the bureaucrats and the politicians are beating the public to death with that, trying to make you think you need an archaeologist. And I say, why? We already know everything about every shipwreck in the Western Hemisphere. We know it. It's not like pre-Columbian. So by definition, they have no business doing anything here. But yet every state in the Union has hired them just to make sure the treasure hunters get cheated.
That's right.
You get the feel I'm a little bitter about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure in your profession, you have the right to be.
Yeah. And, you know, most all of us that are treasure hunters, we've had a few of those encounters, and hopefully that will change, in the near future. Wow. What a legend.
I hope so.
What a guest that we've had tonight, Jeff.
He's been a great guest. And, of course, I know he's going to go through more of them boxes at his house, and then we're going to have him on again.
Yeah.
And I can't wait.
I'll come back sometime, no problem.
Yeah,
in fact, I was thinking about trying to borrow some money from Miss Emily, so if she's listening, I'm going to, everything she finds with a metal detector, I'll let her keep 10%.
She may be in bed right now because she has to go to school, and it's 9:30, I guess, their time there. But I'm sure that they will come back and listen to the archives, and that's going to just thrill her little old heart to have a legend like Captain Fizz to mention her name on the air. What a great show!
I love kids. I do a lot for them, and friends of mine in Texas do a lot with handicapped kids with metal detectors, and I'm into that quite a bit too. But that's maybe for another show.
Yeah. You could have a dozen shows with us, couldn't he, Jeff?
He sure could, and I mean, you're welcome anytime you want. If you're just sitting around on a Thursday night and nothing to do, just call in anytime.
Yeah.
This number we're on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this number that we're on. And we're gonna have Patrick Yanahan up. I don't know when that is, but in the near.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, I'll tell you, if he's not listening, I'm going to give you a question for him.
Okay.
Just say, tell us about the time you called the sheriff when the airplane crashed in Snake Creek.
Okay. No, you call in. Patrick Yanitan is going to be on with us in April the 11th, and that's not that far away. Another one of your treasure hunting buddies, so you'll have to call in that night.
I might do that, and I'll ask him about calling the sheriff for the airplane that crashed.
Yeah, I want to hear that story. Sure do.
Yeah, it's funny.
Sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you have the last word tonight, Jeff.
Well, we thank Carl for being on, and thanks for all the callers we had, and thanks for everyone in the chat, and everyone be safe with all the storms out there, and that's about it. So, Seven, you take us on out of here.
Okay, and Ryan, you be sure now that you send me an email to relicsradio@outlook.com. Give me your address and your shirt size. And Detectives, our good buddies over there, Ken and Mark Guthrie, they will get you a shirt out to you. And if you will, Carl, just kind of hang on the line. Let me close the show out, and we'll talk for a moment before we let you go tonight. I appreciate everybody coming on tonight, all of our callers, all of our listeners, everybody in chat. Everybody that listens to the Syndicated show that comes out as well as all of our live listeners here on Spreaker. And if you like these shows, check out Beyond Sight and Sound with Josh Kimmel on Sunday and Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. All Metal Mode is on at Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern with Mike Hare and Gypsy Jules. American Digger Relic Roundup is on Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern with Butch Hokum, Jeff Lupert, and myself. Then Hardcore Metal Detecting with Derek Asklar and Craig Talley has a show every Thursday and Saturday night at 8 o'clock. And XP Team USA has a podcast every other Friday night with Dave Kimball and Grant Hansen, and that's at 8 o'clock Eastern. And obviously, me and Jeff will be back here next week. And we've got DJ Dowling as our guest next week. That's going to be a good show. We may give that Knox away next week. Come back and join us. Thank you so much for joining us on Relics Radio. We really do appreciate it. Be sure and join us live each Thursday night at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern here on Spreaker. Or you can catch the archive show at Relics Radio on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and many other podcast outlets. Relics Radio is also syndicated on GoodTalkRadio.com and has a show each Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Arizona time. Please take a minute and hit the like button, and be sure and follow us so that you'll get notifications of all of our upcoming broadcasts. You can also find us on YouTube at Digging with Seven or Tennessee Jeff, or you can check us out on our Relics Radio Facebook group page or Adventures in History on Facebook. If you'd like to get in touch with us, then send an email to relicsradio@outlook.com. We'd love to hear from you. We hope you'll join us for our next episode, and until then, get out there and dig some history.